Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Dirty Gaming and the final episode of the Play With Me series with our Guardian. I decided to condense the rest into one video as I've got some other projects I want to go into, and actually there's not a huge amount to cover in this video as it's super easy to get this build from here to clearing your Atlas. So this video is going to go through finishing up the campaign, how to prepare for early maps, and then how to complete your Atlas on pretty bad gear and just a 4-link. So before we get cracking with Act 8, I recommend going to a gem vendor and buying the following gems and level them in your offhand. You want a Summon Spectre, an Animate Guardian, Lightning Penetration Support Gem, and Determination. In terms of the acts itself, there's not really much of interest to go through in Acts 8 to 10 because your build is already finished. What we can do is go through just a few layout tips as you go through Acts 8 to 10. So as you start in Act 8, there's a tiny skip here in the sewers. Any blink skill and probably leap slam will get over this gap. Not a massive time saver, but it is a few seconds which can count here and there. Once you've killed Piety in the sewers, you can either go right or left to continue the acts. In my opinion, never ever go left. It just seems to be a super long and annoying zone. So what you're going to do is head right and go into the key. You want to head down the zone looking for a very thin bridge-like path, either on the left or the bottom, that leads you to the quest item. Once you've got that, you go a bit further into the zone to get to Carissa. It's normally either down to the left or down to the right. You'll know you've gone the right way as this wall is always present. Once you've killed Tolman, leave and then head as far right as you can through the zone to find the exit. Pass through the next area and get to the Grain Gate, and this zone is a series of connecting rooms. A lot lead to dead ends. You will know if you're going the right way because there's a soldier dressed in black and orange that's going to be lying dead in the entrance to every doorway you need to head into. If there is no dead soldier in the doorway, you don't want to go into that room. Once you get further through this zone and get to the Solaris Temple, grab the waypoint, but instead of carrying on through the zone, go back and go left and go all the way out to the Solaris Concourse. Grab the waypoint and then head all the way through the harbour bridge into the Lunaris Concourse. Once you get there, grab the waypoint. I just find this much quicker than going all the way through the Grand Promenade area. And then once you're there, you can do the 3 zones in any order you like. You need to go to the bathhouse to get your lab trial and then through and get your mini boss kill. You need to do the Solaris Temple mini boss and then the Lunaris Temple mini boss, and then just go back and kill the final act boss. Act 9 is a very straightforward act. There's not really any layout tips that I can give you on this. The only one I can think of is in the quarry. There's basically 2 doors that you need to find in this zone. One leads to a refinery and the other leads to a mini boss arena. Now there's only 2 spawn points for these zones and one is always on the right hand side as you come into the zone. So what you want to do is grab the waypoint, then immediately take a right and just go to the door. If this door leads to the refinery, the other door you need to go to is directly opposite to this on the other side of the map, so left as you come in. If however the room to the right leads up some stairs to the boss arena, the refinery is at the very top of the map. It's essentially in line with the waypoint and the entrance. Once you're into Act 10, there is a time saving tip that I can give you, as this zone is very long with no central waypoint. So once you've rescued Bannon and you've got to the main square, drop a portal. Now you want to head down until you reach your control blocks. Grab the waypoint here, then waypoint back to town and back through the portal again. You're now going to be in the middle of the zone. It just saves a lot of backtracking. Now you can head up, grab the waypoint by the ossuary, and now you've basically got every waypoint you need in the act. What I would do before you rush ahead and kill Gitava, get your 2nd and 3rd labs done. They should be very straightforward. The Sentinel on his own should kill Azaro in no time whatsoever. What you also want to do is check that your resistances are capped for when you get the resistance penalty from finishing the act. As long as you've got all those things in order, you should have no problem going straight into white maps and absolutely breezing through them. So before we get onto mapping itself, let's get onto the checkpoints you want to go through to make sure you are ready to map. The first thing you want to do when you finish a campaign is type /passives into the chat. This gives you all of the skill points. If there's any that are showing a 0, it means you need to go back and get that skill point from the campaign. What you also need is a better loot filter, as your leveling 1 is going to be way too soft for maps. If you're in SSF, I'd recommend just running NeverSync's standard strict filter, as this is going to include all the currency items we need and high level bases. It is very soft. It might show you a little bit too much, but at least you're not going to miss anything. So once you've got those two things sorted, what you're looking to do in early maps is firstly switch away from purity of elements over to determination. There's a few things we need to do in order to do this. First, we need to make sure our resistances are capped without purity of elements. We're also going to need a way to deal with freeze, shock, and chill. I don't really care too much about ignite. You get shock immunity from running the Tempest Shield aura. Get your freeze immunity from the Brine King Pantheon. This should be your first use of a Divine Vessel when you find one. If you are struggling, I found Ritual to be pretty good for Divine Vessels. Chill immunity you can get either from a Syndicate boot unveil, you can craft reduced chill effect on rings and boots, or again, you can get it from this Pantheon. You can get 50% reduced effect of chill, but I think it is quite a high tier map that it goes through. Now, to get all the way through to T16 maps and get your first 2 voidstones, you really need very little gear. What you need are levels, life nodes, minion nodes, and a couple of crafted items with essences of fear. You don't need these items, they just make your damage a little bit better. So when leveling through maps, I took this tree to early mid-tier yellows. All I cared about was essences. I wanted to get my essences so that I can get my gear crafted. We're still going to get Kirat missions from taking these small nodes here and then this large node here. And we're going to get all the map sustain really we need at this point from Kirat missions and just natural map drops. Once you've got all these essence nodes, I then just went and farmed all of my lower tier maps, put essence on the map device if I had the chaos, and started hoarding essences. In tier 1 maps, you should be able to take on essences even with these extra nodes here, because the Sentinel of Radiance will just do the damage for you and you can just stay nice and safe. Then I went and took some map nodes. So I took Shape in the Skies, and then I went down and I took Shape in the Mountains. I took these 3 map nodes here, and then I went up and grabbed these nodes here. And that's kind of all you really need for the tree. You don't need anything else really for the whole of your playthrough. You can then just take whatever nodes you want, but this is the core tree. The only other thing I did after that is I went and took some chance for Delirium to spawn, mainly because I wanted some cluster jewels, which I never actually got. I think I found 1 medium cluster jewel, but I wanted a large minion one, but we never found it. But you'd essentially go and take Delirium nodes, so all these ones here have chance to get Delirium. And then that's kind of it. So every probably 3 to 4 maps you get a Delirium mirror, go all the way through to the end of the map with the mirror, and then try and pick up some minion cluster jewels. You're just looking really for notables with life and damage for minions. It's just more efficient for getting damage than the tree. I only actually found 1 medium jewel, which I did slot into a jewel socket because it was better than one of the clusters I took. But if you can't get them, it doesn't really matter. You're still going to be able to get through all of your Atlas without them. And then after this, it's really up to you. I went Ritual. So I actually took the Delirium Fog Never Goes because I didn't care about Delirium Orbs or Simulacrum Splinters. I just wanted cluster jewels. And I went down here and took more chance to get cluster jewels here. And then I think I went up there to get the +1 count. And then I actually took as many Ritual nodes as I could because I started doing Ritual to try and get things like a 5-link, a 6-link, maybe some unique maps, some synth items, things like that. Didn't really get anything any good. I ended up on a 5-link that I linked myself. And that's kind of the tree I went for, but it's really up to you what you go for. If you're doing this sort of playthrough, all I'd recommend is you definitely take all of the essence nodes and all of the map sustain nodes, and that is honestly all you need to get you through the whole entire Atlas. What I'd also do is pick whatever altars you want to farm once you get to T15, T16 maps and take those. If you wanted to go Eater, you'd obviously go over here and take these nodes here. So in terms of crafting, just look for a Convoking Wand on the ground. You're going to hit an Essence of Fear on this, and then you're going to craft Trigger Socketed Spells, which is a Syndicate unlock. And then I would also recommend using these essences on a belt because you can get quite big minion life on a belt. All the rest of the gear I just crafted with any resistance or life essences that had dropped. The only thing I think would be handy is if you can get chance to block on your shield. It's very easy to cap spell block on this build, but it's quite difficult to actually get fully attack capped. So if you can get block on your shield, there's a master you can take to give you a bit more block, which gets you there or thereabouts to cap. I think I was 69% attack block and 75% spell block. In terms of the Animate Guardian gem, I wouldn't use it personally until it gets to level 18. We are taking a lot of minion life nodes on the tree, but the Animate Guardian gains massive life with each level that you get from the gem, and you don't want to lose the items that you put on it, especially in SSF. The only item I had really that wasn't life on my Animate Guardian was a Dying Breath staff that I found. They seem to be super common. I think I found 4 in less than 24 hours. They just give a nice boost to damage. If you can find a Learcast helmet, they're also really good. Again, they just give a nice damage increase. If you don't find any items, I really don't think it's worth messing around with an Animate Guardian. In terms of your Spectres, I went with Carnage and Host Chieftains for Frenzy and Power charges, but that's mainly because I haven't played Minions for years, so I have no idea what new Spectres there are. So let's go through the skill tree I think you should aim for. I did a lot of chopping and changing and testing as I was running through my playthrough, because there was things I learned, things I thought I knew and I didn't, and this is the tree that I settled on in the end. I only ended up getting a medium cluster jewel, which was Hulking Corpses and Feasting Fiends. It just gives damage, life, and a bit of leech for our minions. If I had a large cluster jewel with a couple of mediums, it would be better, but you'd probably end up to drop some block nodes or maybe some minion nodes from the tree, but I think it would be better for damage overall. Like, taking all these small nodes is obviously not super optimal, but I wanted to eke out as much damage as I could. If you don't have a cluster jewel at all, I would just try and get some more life onto the tree, or potentially come down here and get increased effect of auras from your skills, more mana reservation. You could even go up and get a second curse if you can find a curse on hit ring. There's lots of different things you can do without cluster jewels to get your damage back, but this is kind of the tree that I settled on in the end. Eldritch Battery is something I added in much later on because I really didn't want to give up my energy shield as a layer of defense because I had quite a lot. But that was mainly because I geared with energy shield gear, and I'd recommend gearing with armor, energy shield, hybrid gear, because you get more armor and you don't need a ton of energy shield to run Eldritch Battery. So for people that aren't aware, what Eldritch Battery does is it casts a barrier over your mana instead of your life. And what that means is every time you use a skill, it casts from your energy shield instead of your mana, so you can reserve all of your mana. So in terms of auras, apologies, the POB is a little messy. It's just imported directly from the game. So because of all the nodes we've taken and the fact we can reserve all of our mana, I was able to reserve Summon Skitterbots and Tempest Shield. Tempest Shield, really nice layer of defenses. Skitterbots, big damage, and it slows enemies down. I was able to fit in Determination for armor, Vitality for life regen, and then I was also able to fit in a Defiance banner. So with all of those auras, it gave us a good mix of really defenses and quality of life. In terms of overall DPS, I would think on a 5-link, which is what I got up to, I would think my maximum combined DPS was about 700k, but it was easily enough to do Exarch and Eater, and I did some Guardians and other stuff like that. They weren't particularly quick, but they felt fairly safe. So what we'll do now is just run through some highlights. So what I thought we'd do was talk through the playstyle. So I've just entered a Mausoleum map. Now, those will notice that I'm in Ancestor League. I've literally just migrated the character because I wanted to try a couple of different things, but I haven't changed the gear at all. It's still on a 5-link and the absolute garbage gear that I had. So, playstyle. You summon your Sentinel with whatever button. I have mine on W, and then you tag the first bunch of enemies with your Absolution. Your Sentinel will then kill them. That then spawns your minions. What you'll also have are these relics starting to spawn up the top here. And these are Anger, Hatred, and Wrath auras. So these give good damage to yourself and to your Sentinels of Absolution, but they don't really do anything for the Radiant guy. So as you can see, it is pretty comfortable considering you don't have any gear. You hit every now and again, just to make sure your Sentinels stay spawned, but you don't have to constantly hit because you don't do a ton of damage. Your minions do the damage. So as long as you're tagging enemies every now and again, you're going to keep your Absolution Sentinels up. You don't have to kill to get the relics, just someone or something in your party has to kill, so minions also count for that. Now, I have got some horrible mods on these maps, so like increase effect and stuff like that, because this was for my Mage Blood Tornado Shot character. So I'm not necessarily expecting to survive. It's just to show you that as a build that has no investment, it actually works pretty well, and I'm really happy with it. And I'm sure there's hundreds of things that can be tweaked to make it a little better. Now, we're not going to go into the boss arena because it's annoying. So your Sentinel of Radiance lasts about 33 seconds, I think. So you don't have to spawn him that often. I overspawn him. I'm always spawning him like every 5 minutes because I've got OCD, but you don't have to. Just make sure it's around twice a minute that you spawn him, and that should be fine. So we'll just get out of this map. As you see, it is slow going because it is quite a slow build in terms of movement. But for something that could be done at League Start, SSF on no budget whatsoever, you can't expect the world. You can't be expecting to zoom through maps in like a minute 30 and have the damage and have the defenses. As it goes, we've got just about acceptable damage, pretty good defenses, and good enough movement with shield charge. So that's that map done. So we'll get it down. We'll just talk through the skill links that are settled on in the end. So for my Absolution 5 link, I went obviously Absolution. Then I went Fizz to Lightning, Lightning Pen, Spell Echo, which takes a bit of getting used to because it's a little bit clunky, and then minion damage support. I then had a shield charge linked with faster attacks. Convocation on left click. You need this because otherwise your Sentinel or Radiance is going to fall a long way behind. And then the Infernal Cry, just for bosses really. It covers them in Ash and then lowers their resistances. In the Trigger Wand, Flesh Offering, Desecrate, Ellie Weakness. In the Shield, I've got Tempest Shield, Defiance Banner, and Summon Skitterbots. In the Boots, again, these are just unlinked gems. We've got Stone Golem, Determination, Flame Dash, Vitality. And then in the Helmet, we've got our Animate Guardian and our Spectres and Zombies. So it's Spectres, Zombies, Animate Guardian, and then Feeding Frenzy to give a nice buff to the other minions. As I mentioned, the Spectres are probably not optimal, but I haven't really had a chance to look at Spectres. But I know that the ones that give Frenzy and Power Charge is good enough, and they'll be good for Absolution. Zombies obviously don't need any playthrough or talk through at all. The Animate Guardian, like I said, all I've got on it is a Dying Breath, as you can see here. Everything else is just rare items because I was playing in an SSF environment. Then we've got the Stone Golem for life regen, and then the Skitterbots to give us a bit more damage. And then our defensive auras here of Tempest Shield, Determination, Vitality. And honestly, this is all you need to get your Atlas clear. You'll have this set up probably by mid-tier yellow maps. Once you've done that, it's just a case of progressing your Atlas. Just be slightly tentative in your playstyle. I shield charge around too much, wanted to blow up packs, get through maps quickly. But you're probably only doing about 400k DPS. If you get into a red map with extra monster life and you just try and shield charge everything, it might end up quite bad. As you can see in that map that we did, there was a couple of times I shield charged into a pack and got chunked for about 3/4 of my life. However, we do have pretty much max spell block, max attack block. We're immune to shock, and we have a decent amount of armor. So overall, with a 5k life pool, I think this character worked really well, and definitely is something I would consider league starting if I enjoyed the playstyle. I don't particularly love it, and I'd rather have a bit of a harder league start with a build that scales a bit more with a playstyle that I enjoy. That's kind of it for the video. I've left a full leveling POB in the description, along with the POB of where I got to. And then I've also linked the Atlas tree, just the beginning section that I used, and you can tweak it as you want to. I'm not sure what I'm doing for the next build or whether I'm playing the events, but I think there will be a few more videos before we get into the league start prep in about a month's time. So that's really it from me on this build. What I'll leave you with is some highlights from some of the maps that went well, some of the maps that went bad, and then some of the boss kills, just so you can get an idea on the DPS, because it is very, very slow, but I was able to get that Atlas done. Everything cleared with less than 20 deaths. So I think it's something that's definitely worth trying out if it's not something you've toyed around with. So highlights to come. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. See you in the next video.